everyone. Welcome to our first edition of our Candid Conversations. I'm Brenda Hetrick, Chief Revenue Officer of Matrix Solutions.
And I'm Mark Gorman, the CEO of Matrix Solutions. And we're thrilled to have you guys join us here for, what are we going to call this? Pre-game? This is like pre-game. Tequila in here that I'll be, taking little sips of while we're getting ready for the main event.
Every time we say Candid Conversation, maybe take a sip.
Take a sip.
We'll have a drinking game. I do not have tequila because I'm actually going to moderate the first panel, and I want to be focused because we have a great group of panelists. They all do happen to be leading women in the addressable and the media industry, addressable field media industry. So I'm very excited about that as our first kickoff. Really excited to be coming to you from our office in Pittsburgh, although we're not back in the office officially. But
we're not back until, well, we're saying beginning of the year, but I'm really believing at this point we're probably going to push it at least through the first quarter. But what's interesting is it's like premiere week, premiere month on television. Traditionally, historically, every fall it was so exciting. You got the TV guide of all the new shows. What I thought was interesting is, not that I watch any daytime TV, but Ellen's back on.
She is back on.
She's back on, yes. And a lot of controversy. We learned a lot of lessons here at Matrix from the Ellen's controversy. We were talking about, I loved her, she came on, she apologized, she sort of took responsibility. I didn't watch the whole thing. And I will say, as I'm not a huge fan of her comedy, but I did think it was pretty funny. The line where she was saying she had a lot to learn. She said, I haven't, I'm not the most patient person. And, sometimes things weren't happening fast enough for me. And so I had to learn that. But my only complaint is learning patience is just not going fast enough. So I thought that was pretty funny.
I actually think that is funny, and I had a teacher once, and it reminded me of this. He made a statement, and a few years ago in college, he made a statement that was not taken well, and he apologized for us not understanding his humor. So while he did give an apology, it wasn't that he was sorry. It was we didn't get his humor.
I'm sorry if what I said offended you.
So I sort of felt Ellen might have been apologizing for us not understanding what was going on.
I hit the little button.
But yeah, Ellen's back. Sports are back, which should make our industry happy.
Very unhappy about football.
Not me, just so we're
Very
clear.
Unhappy.
Matrix is located in Pittsburgh, headquartered. However, Mr. Gorman
I'm from Philly,
is a Philly guy.
Eagles,
Steelers 2-0.
Eagles 0-2.
And for those
not going well.
Not going well.
Not going well.
I did listen to a little sports talk radio this morning, and based out of New York, and there was some, the coach from Philly had made a comment about the quarterback, and it's never good when the coach makes a comment about the quarterback publicly. So there was a little bit of like concern. I don't know if concern is the right word, but a little bit. Things might not be great in Philadelphia land.
You need a shake-up. Something's gotta give, as they say.
We're in Western Pennsylvania, we're happy, and for those of our attendees or people coming on today who are in the New England area, Western Pennselsvania is very excited because this quarterback that used to be our nemesis is no longer, in the AFC. So we're even more. He's down.
I haven't been following that though. How's he doing? I mean, is he bringing them up? I have no idea.
I don't know either.
I
gotta tell
less.
you, yeah, he's out of my.
He's out of your life.
He's out of our life, so I don't care. We'd only see him in the Super Bowl, I guess, if we get to that point. But yeah, live sports are back. That's a big bonus for the industry. I know the Emmys were on the other night.
They were. Schitt's Creek.
Yeah, Schitt's Creek.
I'm not cursing.
Nope.
It's the name of the show. Which is incredibly funny. I felt well deserved. Another favorite of mine was Succession. It won some awards, and I heard Kendall. I forget Kendall's real name, but Kendall
Kendall Roy in the show indicated in his acceptance speech that they would be filming is starting, and we should be getting a new succession
That's exciting.
next
We do have
spring.
HBO in my house, but literally that's the only thing we watch. So I'm wondering what we're actually paying for. But talking about paying for things, to the transition. What's interesting is with the virus, they're saying cord cutting has been really on the rise this year. They're saying 7.5%, up to 31.8, I think, million households by the end of the year will have cut the cord. That's, that's a decent number. I always say, like, how are these people going to be, paying for what they're seeing? I mean, they probably have Netflix, Prime, Disney. They're buying all this stuff. I don't know. I mean, we have some of that, but we haven't gone as far as cutting the cord, though. I think I had mentioned to you, we now have Fios, which honestly I don't like as much as Xfinity. I know that may be controversial.
Be good for Gina, one of our panelists, because Xfinity's Comcast. I'm an Xfinity loyalist.
Yeah.
So
I think way better. The Fios is not good. But it is interesting. So you'll see, like, these providers, they're also doing your internet. They're not going to lose in this game. And I know they had done this, and I think it's still in South Florida, where I also, I'm actually a resident. They do some metering. So if you're using more internet, you're actually going to pay more, and I think that's going to become more popular.
It'll be interesting, right, to see if they can start to measure that. Yeah, it's been interesting. We're not a cord cutter. We can't get enough media at our house.
Yeah, I hear you.
For two people in the house, we have more things, more content available
I hear you.
Even Disney Plus, and I don't have the youngest person at my house is me.
Yeah.
So
our dogs actually also watch the TV. Whenever we're not home, we have to turn the TV on.
Right.
And so one other thing was interesting is there was I had read this morning, there was a town in Wales. Did you see this? Their broadband went out, and it was out for 18 months.
Wow.
And they actually rewired the whole town, and they couldn't figure out what it was. Well, apparently this woman owned an old television set. She had turned it on, and it actually wiped out the entire town's
caused the whole broadband to go, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
I don't even know. I mean, I didn't read the
crazy.
technical, and even if I did, I'd have no idea what it's saying. But I thought, wow. That's
That
pretty
is
interesting.
That is quite interesting. I know my brother was probably one of the last converts to the digital world. He was still working on his three station antenna, and
I like it.
yeah, for some time.
I like it.
But yeah, he's finally made the move. Made the move to the real world. But anyway, so it's been good. I think from our customers and from the industry, we've seen that that looking like things are getting back to normal.
Yeah.
That we weathered this interest. We have this election coming up. We'll see. Certainly
A lot of spending everywhere. A lot of swing states.
So we'll see of which Pennsylvania is one. So we're getting a lot of ads.
A lot.
So we'll see how that helps. Potentially take some of the sting or the loss of revenue earlier this year. It will be potentially the political will help mask some of that. But with that, we're getting ready to start our candid conversations. We appreciate your spending some time with us prior to pre-gaming with us. And for those of you who do have a cocktail, feel free to have a drink.
Yep, enjoy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our very first Candid conversation. I'm Brenda Hetrick, the Chief Revenue Officer at Matrix Solutions. And on behalf of the Matrix team, really thrilled to have everyone with us today. Really excited to be having the first Candid conversation, and couldn't be more excited about having it focus on addressable TV, addressable advertising, and further excited about the rock star panel that I have. It just so happens we're all women, and I think that that's incredibly moving as well when you think about how important addressable advertising is to our industry, how important the media industry is, and that we've got some leading women speaking to this particular topic. So I'm very, very excited to have everyone here today. As we start the panel conversation, if you've got questions, feel free to put them into the chat. We will get to questions, or into the Q&A session. We will get to questions at the end. We're going to give the panelists time to discuss some topics, but we certainly want to leave some time to answer any questions you may have. I'm going to start by introducing the panelists. First, we have Gina Mingioni she's the Senior VP of Strategy and Operations at Comcast Advertising, and let her speak a little bit more as we start this about what Comcast is doing and what Gina is involved in as far as specific addressable goes. We've got Kelleher. She's the President of Advertising Sales and Partnerships at AMC Network. And rounding out the last but not least, I should say, we have Kelly Abcarian from Nielsen, and she's the General Manager of Advanced Video Advertising. She is the General Manager of the Advanced Video Advertising Group at Nielsen. Again, stellar panelists when we're talking about addressable advertising. So welcome to the panel. And what I wanted to do is we'll start with Gina. If you would like to just talk to us or talk to the audience a little bit about what your definition of addressable is, and a vision for it in the short term and long term if you want to, and then just a brief overview of what you're doing or what Comcast is doing specific to addressable.
Sure, thanks, Brenda. And before I do, can I just say that if you and Mark start a talk show, sign me up.
Don't say that to Mark, because he will be on it.
That was amazing. I think you said talk about what we think of
what you're doing at Comcast Vision Addressable, and a little bit about what your role is specific to addressable.
Great, sure, yeah. So we're involved in addressable in a number of ways. I'm in Comcast Advertising, which is both effective media sales as well as freewheel, so advertising technology. And then we have a piece that goes across both with addressable enablement, data enablement. I work kind of across all of them, focused on the addressable enablement. So of course, from a media sales standpoint, effective is local sales, and we've had addressable for some time. The whole business being able to localize, but also using other data to target. But in the last year, we really shifted the foot, or added enabling programmers inventory in addition to our own on VOD, which we've had for a while, but really a shift toward linear, where the bulk of the inventory is. So a huge focus for us is working with partners like Kim and other programmers to enable their inventory. And through that, as we're focused on this, knowing that we really need to bring scale to addressability beyond the 2 minutes an hour. To do that, we need to work beyond Comcast and really partner across the industry, both with other MVPDs as well as other tech companies and such. So we founded an initiative called Unachievable, announced it last year at Cannes. It's got multiple parts to it, but it's really about how we work collectively across the industry on standards, definition, technology, working through challenges that the industry faces together, and then of course enabling our partners like AMC to make their inventory addressable.
Perfect. I actually have some questions, but I'm going to let everyone introduce and then I'll come back. So why don't we go to Kelly next?
Sure. My name is Kelly Abcarian. I run the advanced video advertising practice at Nielsen. I do want to compliment Gina, your guys' release of the unaddressability. I think it's a step forward toward collaboration and education and a lot of change management we're all going to be facing, trying to evolve business models that have been very well seated for very many years for very good reason. So thank you for the leadership there. When we think about addressability, it takes forms of cross what Gina mentioned, VOD, CTV, and then one-to-one linear. I do want to just focus on one-to-one linear because that's what I'm focused on inside of my remit. We took on a number of acquisitions in the last couple of years to really bring together what we think is going to be next generation in terms of helping to unlock all 16 minutes, like Gina referenced, really helping both cable networks as well as broadcasters. When you look at broadcast today, it's about 40% of linear TV, and cable networks represent about 60%. So unlocking it across everyone's going to be important in which to drive scale. And so, we've been working with great partners like Kim at AMC Networks to really test out these capabilities, because we are, for the first time, really bringing to the industry an ability to unlock this on smart TVs. And why that's important is if you look at the growth of smart TVs, it's on a rocket ship. Right now, 53% of all homes have at least one connected smart TV enabled in their household. And that number has grown immensely over the last 4 years. And so we're really focused on how we can play a part in collaborating across the other footprints like Comcast and others that also can bring a lot of value to helping to unify the scale so that, we can unlock as much addressability across the marketplace at large.
Thank you, Kelly. And Kim, from your standpoint and AMC standpoint, I've certainly heard your name mentioned as a great partner. So what are some things you're focusing on and AMC is focusing on as well, specific to addressability?
Sure. I think to your question, Addressable really removes the old ways of demo and content targeting and introduces new and more efficient ways to target a specific audience based on attributes we can couple together. So, that can be advertiser or programmer data, allowing more precise delivery of a campaign to an audience, which makes it more likely to convert. In other words, I feel like it's what the digital world has been doing for a long time, and the linear world is now looking to fully embrace. And we're all in, and we have all of our eggs in this basket, because I think that this is going to be the future of the way we transact. And at AMC, we're putting our focus on this completely because we feel like this is where the market is heading, and selling an addressable audience across all platforms. And we're well positioned at this point and pretty far along with the build around our pilot partnerships, specifically on addressability, which Gina mentioned. Project OR is another one, and then obviously our partnership with Nielsen Addressable. I think that we've decided to really learn from these partnerships as rapidly as we can, and we're trying to be as engaged a partner as we can throughout all of the manifestations of that learning.
And this is perfect, and it leads to my next, which I would say is more as another big picture conversation, and you've touched upon it, so I'm gonna, what is driving the pursuit of addressable? And you've mentioned that. So I think, like, in addition to what is driving it, and maybe we can just get everyone's input as what is driving it, but also where are we? Kim, you just mentioned that you're far along in some of your pilot, partnerships. So, in my mind, it's being driven because linear, we need to be more like a digital, or it needs to be a more, easier buy, if you will. So what is driving, what is driving the core concepts of addressability? And then where do you guys, or where do you women feel we are in that scale? Are we just starting? Are we just getting the tip of the iceberg? Are we pretty far along? And where, and how much further do we have to go? Do you want to start, Kim?
Sure, I'll take that last part of the question first, if you don't mind. It's interesting. I feel like what you're asking is it mainstream yet? And I feel like the answer is not really, not really. But I feel like we are headed in that direction. So what's driving it? It's everything. It's the manifestation of digital targeting success from the internet. It's the advent of integration of data. It's cross-platform marketing tech. It's outcome-driven ROI and attribution, and then frankly, just the whole industry growing up and getting more sophisticated and recognizing that you're not actually horse trading, you're layering on a benefit. The only thing I would just say, and this is more of a kind of a big picture statement, I think it's really important that we recognize, and I'm sure you're going to talk about this in a bit, that we recognize and stay united on how this is really quite a premium opportunity that we're developing. This is very sophisticated. There's a lot of work going into it, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And we have to stay kind of united in keeping the elevation of this up while we figure it out, if you will.
So Gina, from Comcast perspective, what is driving your, and where do you feel we are in this scale?
I think Kim said it, that this is what digital's been doing for a while, and we knew we needed to bring not only targeting and data, but proof of performance or attribution to TV. I think we've been talking about it for a long time. We've had programmers enabled on VOD, but really obviously the bulk of the inventory is in linear. And for a long time we talked about it, and I'll be interested in Kelly's thoughts on this too, as well as Kim. The technology wasn't there yet. And I think the reason we're, all the pilots are where they are, and you're hearing this all the time in the news, is the technology's there. And now it's a matter of how do we scale that. You've seen a couple of these initiatives. Kim mentioned Project Or. I should have said, Addressability was co-founded with Charter and Cox, right? And we're having conversations with other distributors, both traditional and emerging, on how we can bring more in, because just to bring the scale and to work through these solutions together. So I think that's the reason why we're hearing it so much more now, is that we're at a place where it's exciting, we're ready. Although I agree with Kim, we're not mainstream yet. I think, given the pandemic conversations, it's coming out of the experimental innovation area and more into the conversation, but it's not mainstream yet. And so that's obviously a lot of what we're focused on, is how we make this scalable, interoperable, so it can really be a mainstream tactic.
So Kelly, from your perspective, which is it's a little bit different, what is driving, or what did drive, Nielsen's future forward thinking that, we've got to be here from your perspective?
Well, if you look at kind of some of the challenges that digital had in terms of addressability, there was a lot of challenges around fraud and brand safety and things. And Nielsen felt like we could play an important role to being an independent, trusted provider in which to help unlock these minutes and help work and collaborate with others in which to not bring some of those dirty terms into television. And, when we look at it, I think at the end of the day, the consumer is really driving this at the end. If you think about the consumer today, they watch over an hour of ads per day. That's 5,000 ads every day. And when you play that out to how many hours, it's about 365 hours of ads a year and 30,000 hours in their lifetime. So, consumers don't hate ads. They don't despise them, but they do want an experience that's enjoyable and pleasant and, is not too redundant or too frequent of advertising in which they're being exposed to. And so what we saw as a tremendous opportunity is how we could take some of the assets that we brought into play to help kind of work alongside of our TV clients that have been trusted partners for 65 plus years or 70 years, whatever it is going on now, and really try to figure out how we could help make an impact. And if you look at scale today, Kim and Gina touched upon this. We're about 3% of all linear TV that's really addressable. A lot is happening in VOD, but most of the units are sitting in linear. And a lot of that's driven because, as Gina mentioned, 40% of set-top box homes are enabled and addressable, fully capable, but largely, historically, it was in the 2 minutes, not across the full 16. And now, Comcast is really bringing that out to the full 16. And then with smart TVs, where homes are cord cutters or don't have a set-top box footprint or maybe not an enabled set, I think the growth and ability to drive this from 3% to 21% in the next year or so is a real reality. And as Kim said, I think all the advantages of targeting and data and all the greatness of, a lot of people say targeting and advertising are words that are seemingly not copacetic, if you will, or things that are something that advertisers want to lean into. But the reality is they want to connect uniquely to their consumers. And that's what this type of capability really allows the next generation capability around. And so that's why we're excited by the efforts that everyone is really kind of pushing forward And I think you're seeing a lean in across programmers and as well as the demand side, but also the distributors and the OEMs who really are the new entrants into the market. And so I think it's super exciting about where it can head from here.
I think, you know, I hear everything that you're saying, and I wanted to talk about it again, you know, maybe big picture again, but you talked about where the technology is, and also, you know, what percentages where we are with linear. So what are your thoughts on what are some challenges that we really do need to overcome for us to you know, get the premium benefit or leverage the premium from a technology perspective, but also from a revenue perspective? Is it getting to the linear side, or is it where we can see, is it OTT, or do we make the greatest impact at the easiest, you know, the easiest path first, or do we need to really, and then as we get baby steps, we grow toward the linear where it is maybe not quite as, I shouldn't say easy, but the vision is maybe not there yet. And I say the vision is not there, not that there isn't the vision there, but getting everyone on that same path of that vision. What are your thoughts on that? I guess we'll go to Gina.
There's a lot of questions in there.
I know, sorry.
No, it's good. I mean, I think I don't know where to start, Brenda, but maybe, you know, the question about where we'll have the biggest impact, linear, digital, you know, smart TVs. I think the way we view it is it's for an advertiser, how do they reach their audience, regardless of the platform they're consuming the content on? And I think that's a key thing, a key component that we need to solve for. I mean, there's a couple, I know we'll talk measurement later, but right now, you know, having conversations with other partners, talking about, it's great that we have a couple of consortiums coming together, but now it's like the consortiums need to come together, like the consortium of consortiums, but just partner and work together to make it as easy as possible for Kim and her programming partners and the buy side to transact and not have to, you know, work through different processes, different user interfaces, different standards. So I think that's why these initiatives that are aimed at, you know, really making it frictionless and as easy as possible, and that's easier said than done, but I think that's a critical component, because once we have that, once it's easy to transact, it really is about how do you reach your audiences, where are your audiences, and delivering the target based on wherever you find them.
And Kim, what are your thoughts along? I mean, you also talked about the premium. I know we talked about like the technology needs to be there, and then also I think getting people organized around the value. Where do you think we can make the most impact, and where are the largest challenge?
I think addressable makes the biggest difference on linear and probably TVE. Because many of the IP connected devices can already do very similar targeting depending on the transaction type. And the overall initiative becomes really powerful when you can deliver unduplicated reach across both linear and CTV, to the point made earlier. So while it's really, I don't want to, you know, I'd like to say it's more than an idea or a theory now, but not much. I really feel like this is where it's all moving towards being a real opportunity, and that's really exciting, as my co-panelists have both cited. I think that, you know, we could stand the challenges for a while because it is early days, and innovation is not easy. And I think that you know, with your teams, you have to work really hard to move beyond the status quo. And I think that, you know, I think that we're figuring it out real time. I think mathematically the combined advertisers together in a single spot should yield more revenue than a single advertiser in a single spot. I think it should yield better performance for advertisers. And to my point earlier, I think it's really imperative that we work together to validate the premium for that kind of targeting if we really want this to work. My biggest concern right now in these early days is making sure that we don't offer this at parity. I think it really does deserve more. And then lastly, just, you know, talking about process and challenge, I feel like the easiest part of this is probably on the revenue side. We can absolutely train sellers to sell this just through repetition, and they really understand this. Where I feel like we're working through some real challenges are integrating this into our pricing and inventory processes and some of the mainstay processes that are integral to our linear business now. But a lot of this is still highly manual, and I'm hopeful that we can develop some technology along with this that will make this a much more efficient process.
So I'm curious about the you can train your sellers, because that was going to be my next question. Traditionally how inventory is sold, the sales organization, and sometimes there might be a thought that it's hard to get that group organized and motivated to a new way of selling, or commoditizing, your inventory or your revenue. And you are saying, Kim, that you think that is certainly a challenge that is probably an easier one to overcome, and getting the sales org, focused on that. And Gina, do you see the same thing from your perspective at Comcast?
Yes, definitely. I think, we made a shift to not only addressable, but data-driven advertising. And it is a different way of selling. But to Kim's point, I think through practice and repetition, people can adapt. And that is one that we're solving for, that we have progress on.
Perfect. And Kelly, this one's just for you, since it's measurement. What are, how do you see, I know you've talked a little bit about the measurement, but how do you foresee the measurement working in the addressable environment? And what are some challenges that you're facing, or you will need to overcome, or areas where it's just not black and white yet, that there are some gray that you're still working through?
Yeah, I think measurement's really important to underpin this transformation. As Kim and Gina mentioned, it's a new way of working. And if you're going to train people on new ways of working, they got to have data in which to make smart decisions. And so, we've been working, we announced a measurement task force in June of last year to really focus on what do we need to do to make C3, C7 more flexible. Obviously, I think one of the biggest holdbacks is the fact that, there are a set of rules that are governing C3, C7, and they're not very flexible today. You really have to keep that same ad intact across that 3 and 7 day window in which to, make good on that guarantee that you've made to the advertiser. And so we need to be able to help the industry unlock that value by bringing that flexibility to root inside of C3, C7. Because as an advertiser who bought the original ad, they need to know that they paid for only the piece of the ad that actually was basically delivered to the end consumer, not for the ads that were also built into that same unit and went to different households. So providing them that clear reconciliation of what was the delivery of that linear ad unit, and then just as importantly, what was the actual delivery of any addressable ad units that you also participated in, and then bringing that together in a way that they expect Nielsen to help them with, which is understanding the importance of unique reach and frequency, as already mentioned by both Kim and Gina. So that's a huge focus around how can we measure all 16 minutes and ensure we do that with full transparency. The second thing I would say is a lot of what Kim referenced, which is it needs to be added up across the board. Like, consumers don't care about what screen they're watching, and advertisers want to reach them at the best moment at the right opportunity. And so being able to bring that full picture together across linear and CTV and digital, and really helping the real problem, which is how to understand who did I uniquely reach and what was the frequency in which I reached them with, seems so simple, but it is a very complex challenge that we've all been wrestling with over the last probably 5 to 10 years. And I think the time has come to really advance the capabilities around addressability, that these things need to be kind of table stakes in which to get the market moving. So we're hugely focused on that. And then it goes without saying, how to bring in attribution and help to provide an understanding of that ROI. Programmers alike are being more and more asked, what is the impact of this advertising spend on television or another medium? So being able to have the types of tools that digital has had, which I would argue digital takes a lot of credit for a lot of television exposures that don't necessarily is what ultimately probably drove the individual to that, full funnel awareness down through the marketing funnel. And so really being able to attribute and that marketing impact across the funnel is going to be critically important as we move ahead.
So on measurement, I get, there are clear ways of measurement from the technical aspect and in what you said. How are you finding the industry moving toward an agreeable measurement? Is there still some discourse between, a consistent measurement from industry media companies?
Look, I think everyone at the end of the day, no one wants their numbers to go down. That's usually where the discourse starts. It's not fundamental disagreement around where we need to head and how we need to probably get there. But at the end of the day, numbers drive stock value, numbers drive advertising budgets, numbers drive salaries. And so, there's sensitivity and there's always been, and we take that with great care and the role that we play in which to bring the absolute understanding of a fair and unbiased system in which to literally, we don't have a horse in the race in regards to who wins or who loses. We're there to report the results and bring confidence to sellers and buyers alike. So I wouldn't say there's any holdout. I think it's just, how does all of these initiatives come together in a way that helps the industry at large kind of move forward and evolve the business models? I mean, Kim stated, the need to retrain or to kind of train up folks. We can't forget about the change management effort that needs to underpin all of this to make sure that the decisions that need to be made off of data continue to help drive the business forward and not drive the business in the wrong direction.
So we're coming up on our time. So I have one last question for all of you, or one last statement, and I'd like you to address. I guess it's not necessarily a question, but predictions. Where, how, when, where do you see this evolve? If we get on a panel again next year at this time, what progress will we have made from your specific company, from your specific mindset, you as a leader of sales in your organization, and from the industry perspective? And we'll start with Kim.
So, okay. Oh, predictions are the worst because people hold them.
I'm writing them down.
I'd say we are still a ways out, but the pace to get there is picking up. If I had to put a stake in the ground, I'm going to say we are still 3 years away from this being mainstream, but that those who are embracing it early will win the budgets, and those who can couple as much reach for a single programmer will win the supply. That's my prediction.
Got it. Gina?
So I think if we're talking a year from now, for certain, I think you're going to see the majority, if not all, of programmers having, traditional linear as well as CTV inventory addressably enabled. Also collaboration. We're already working on this across initiatives. And then I think just to follow up on what Kelly just covered, measurement. I think the question of is the industry aligned? There's no disagreement that we need to solve for measurement. That's one of the most critical items that we need to focus on. And so seeing significant progress in that space will be key.
Kelly?
Yeah, I would just say that, if you look at what we've all been going through with the pandemic and the fact that GDP often follows the advertising dollars, and that has greatly impacted global economies, including ourselves here in the US. But what I think we failed to recognize or realize is just how much advertising plays a critical role in the inverse relationship, which is, in times of down economies, advertising plays a key role in kickstarting that economy. And so, I'm very optimistic that, now is the time to disrupt ourselves holistically across this industry. And I think everyone's leaning in. So I would kind of concur with Kim's advice, which is CMOs play a huge role. Everyone on the supply side is leaning in, from distributors to programmers to ad tech players, so the oasis is theirs to step to the table. It's the dollars that count, and they own the dollars to bring that demand and step up and be heard. And then lastly, like Kim said, those who lean in fast and furious and hard, they'll be the innovation and the winners in the end. So, my advice in the next year, CMOs start making those demands, don't be shy. The programmers are here. They know that flexibility is key, and they've got lots of partners leaning in to help them, really take this, business model to the next level.
So we had a question, and it was more, it sort of ties just to what you've already said, and I'll follow up, and that is, there's Project Door, there's Unaddressable, there are a few, consortiums or organizations or actions, if you will, that are working towards some common goals, but don't necessarily include everyone. Measurement is another. There are, I don't want to, there's disparate, but I don't necessarily want to say they're not all focused in the right direction, but they are disparate. What do you think needs to happen to get a unified view or concept on this? Or do you think Project Door, Unaddressable, not doing it, as one whole, is that a good thing? Gina?
So I think I'd first start by saying that the last couple of years we've seen what people would call unlikely partnerships working together. There's no lack of that, and all these initiatives that exist that you just mentioned, add OpenAP to it. I've not heard of any saying no to someone who wanted to join, which is a great start. From a Comcast standpoint, we're involved obviously in unaddressability, but also Project Door through both NBC and Freewheel. We are part of OpenAP as well. I think we're already having these groups talk to each other. I think we've all been very focused on, getting things live and turned on, but are already talking about how we need to come together. I don't think it needs to be one massive initiative, more collaboration across the board. Kelly, you said this on a panel last week, right? Interoperability is key. And so I actually don't think that's the hard part. It's just everybody's got a lot going on. And how we now make progress with the pilots and in parallel begin to work together on how we collaborate on things that make it easy to do business across all of them.
So Kim, before I let you answer this, I just was, and I wanted to mention this at the beginning and I forgot, and that was your, news today about SpotX and programmatic and bringing it in. So again, another initiative, but do you see from your perspective a need to have these all at some point, conglomerated into one, or is multiple or are multiple avenues, the right thing to be doing?
I think we made a conscious decision to participate really across the board so we could learn as rapidly as possible. And everyone is actually learning at a different rate and has a slightly different positioning. So I find it holistically beneficial, if not a bit taxing on the team, but yes. So since we're a pilot partner with Project Door, and since OR has integrations with both Freewheel and Google, the idea of offering it as a programmatic transaction type is relatively new in market. So SpotX is our preferred SSP, and there's no one better to partner with than them and the trade desk. So you can see, it's funny because you could look at it like everyone is kind of separate, but actually it's totally interwoven, like Gina was mentioning and like Kelly has mentioned, where I think anyone who's interested in this space is leaning in wholeheartedly to what everyone is doing, because the net result, whether it's 1 year like Gina said or 3 years like I said, is going to actually be the best of, if you will.
Got it. And Kelly, we do have a question for you. Will ATSC 3.0 be measured along with cable inventory?
Meaning like the ATSC data feed itself?
Well, the question was ATSC 3.0 be measured along with cable inventory. So my guess is yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Nielsen's approach has always been to be very open to the sources of big data that can help us best measure the consumer and the advertising landscape. To me, ATS 3.0 is just another data pipe that's pretty important to the broadcast community that they've been working hard at and which to get deployed. And so as that comes online and, a return path capability from that data stream becomes a reality, then, bringing that on board, just like working with other large MVPD operators or set-top box or cable operators, as well as smart TV manufacturers, it's all inside of the spirit of making sure that we've got as best and strong of a data set, and obviously underpinned by our Nielsen panel in which to calibrate for where those data sets often have some gaps or biases in which to, really help bring the strongest measurement to the market.
Got it. Well, let's see, another quick question here. Let me see, before we, they're coming in. Oh, well, there was a thank you. So here's another question for Kelly. And we are, just to attendees, we're coming up on our time, but as linear moves towards addressability, in what respects will it be similar, different than digital addressability?
Well, I could probably go on for another hour on that topic alone. I mean, this is actually a very interesting topic because if you really look at linear versus digital, you're talking about a futures market versus high frequency trading market. You're talking about finite supply versus infinite supply. There's so many things, and this is where I think the process is still being figured out, to Kim's comment. So be patient with all of us, and we're all trying to figure out how to bring the best of digital into the fold, but not the things that don't make sense. I mean, if you think about kind of programmatic and real-time bidding, will it take the same kind of path forward? I don't know that it will. It's a futures market, and people are going to use that information to do better pacing and yield optimization, which is something that I think the programmers could greatly benefit from, as well as the advertisers. Because being able to make more timely decisions and being able to then react to those decisions and really influence consumers' minds is really, the Holy Grail. So, I think it's not that simple in digital. I run across many digital ad tech players that haven't spent a long time in linear TV and don't understand some of the nuances that make television and the way that process works so great. And so it's just not as simple as saying, we take one impression at a time. They're just like serving the next impression. And the impressions here are very premium and sacred. And so a lot of care has to go into how do you kind of best pace a linear campaign, pace an addressable campaign, know that those two things come together in the end across an advertiser, and do it in a way that makes everyone comfortable, that brand safety is being held in place, that no fraud is being introduced. And so, I think this is an area that we bring a lot of expertise of just working with programmers around these important kind of aspects that just cannot be left for, worrying about after the fact. They have to be very much thought through, before going to the market. And that's a lot of what we've spent a lot of time with great partners like with Kim to kind of get advice and understanding alongside of our other programmer partners. What is important? What do they need to make sales really work? And on the demand side, what do you need for transparency to really feel that you can vote with your dollars in that right way?
So, before I thank the panelists and wrap up, I do just want to make a programming note to join us on October 20th at 2 p.m. with our next Candid conversation. We're excited to have Jill Rosengard-Hill from Magid, who will have new research results with OTT consumer behavior trends. And for those of you who typically join us on site in Miami, you all know that Jill's presentation of her results is always our best attended session. And her data is, fresh off the presses. So we're excited to have Jill next month. I would like to really thank Gina and Kelly and Kim for this on addressable or addressability. I think to Kelly's point with the last question, this is something that from where I sit in the industry, I could talk about for hours as well, and solve specifically from the sales organization side, because as you see the future of the industry, you see this is clearly the future of the industry, right? And so I think it's really exciting that we've got 3 panelists here who are committed to working together, no matter what the avenue is, leaning in and advancing this for not only the good of their companies, the good of the industry, and quite frankly, the good of the consumer, right? We want to be targeted to Kelly's point with an ad that makes sense for me at the appropriate time. So I think this is all good. I think next year, if we have this panel, we will still have some really good things to talk about and some advancements that we have made. So once again, thank you to the panel. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for the participants. Really thrilled to have everyone. Join us next month and have a great day, everyone. Take care. Thank you.
Joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Ladies, bye.
Bye. Thank you.